like I said the last time you were here, you're a successful businessman. Why are you playing in the waters of politics now?
And I explained then, which anyone who has ever done business in Nigeria will know, politics affects everything we do. We went into business with the belief back then that let's take destiny into our hands. Politics is dirty. We don't need to get in there. Let's move away and just focus on business. And guess what? We built tremendous businesses. Every bank that you see today that is standing out there, the product of that, let us go and do business. Insurance companies, product of that. Oil and gas companies, product of that. Telecom companies, product of that. Whatever. The business sector in Nigeria is a product of people getting up and saying that, you know what, politics is dirty, let us go and... But ask every successful businessman, ask anyone, call Aliko Dangote, call Herbert Wigwe, call anyone into the studio and ask them how much has politics affected their business, and you will see it's been tremendous. Now, you can no longer ignore it. And so for us to ensure that we have a country that understands what it means to create the opportunities that allows normal people to be talented people to express their talent without having to know who is in government. That's why we're there. We must change the dynamics of politics and we must change it positively.
I also want us to talk about the plans for some of the gaps that currently exist for rapid response, evacuation, flood mitigation, care for the displaced persons, because I want to assume that a lot of the preventive measures you talked about will not happen in the course of a year, may not be completed before the next flooding happens. So what would you do differently as governor to improve government's capacity to handle this?
That's a great question, Sandra. So the first aspect of it, when you think about why do we lack all of this, what's the fundamental reason why there is a lack of response? You can put your finger down to a lack of care. A lack where we tend to see a government that does not care about people and does not care about the suffering of people. And so you need to put people first and put them inside the frame of whatever you're going to do. When you do that, then it becomes easy for you to begin to think about how can I prevent further suffering of someone. If you know a flood is going to come and the person's farmland is within an area where they're going to flood, and you know that when that flood comes, what they will lose is their crop first of all. So their sense of livelihood is gone, wiped off first. Then the first thing you need to do is begin to provide either cash that would help them go back, or you provide a store for grains and food that they can. So you must provide that. So that conditional cash that is for rapid response, for just keeping people from falling into poverty, is something you must begin to build. So that's something we will do. Silos. Food. How do I take your crop? Collect it now, because I know that there is a flood that is going to come. You are going to lose your sense of livelihood. So pack it. When you are going to feed, how are you going to feed? Not just eat for that day, but are you going to be able to replant? They are going back. Now the flood has receded. People have gone back into the farm. How are they farming? Where are they getting the seed that they are going to need to go back into farm? Government is not providing that. And these are things that we must think about. If you don't have the people at the center of your thought, then you have a problem. You're going to have diseases that will come. Mosquitoes, malaria, all of those things that are going to come as a result of the flood water and all. Who is dealing with that? So these are long. You've talked about the longer term. I talked about the longer term issues, solutions, but there are immediate solutions which you've pointed out, and those immediate solutions can be dealt with immediate short-term measures, and we know what to do.
I want to talk about Executive Orders 21 and 22.
The great orders.
Signed by Governor Wike a couple of months ago. Lagos Executive Order 21 bans campaign rallies in public schools in Rivers State, and it requires government approval for any public rally with a non-refundable payment of 5 million naira. And Executive Order 22 bans the opening of campaign offices in residential areas. Your party opposed both orders and actually sued the state government. But today your party has withdrawn the suit for what it calls strategic reasons. What are those reasons?
I'll leave the reasons of why it's been withdrawn out of the picture.
Okay.
But let me go to the there's a meanness to certain things when you deny people their voice. And what that leads to often, and this is what we've been struggling with, is the violence that comes with restraining people and just putting them in a place where they know that injustice is being done. Executive Order 21 and 22 are unjust in every way. The first aspect of it is that you're a sitting governor. I must come to you as an opposition to get permission from you to come out and campaign against you, or naturally, we're not going to get the result of that. So the first aspect of it was, how do we silence? So for the Executive Order 21, how do we silence the voice of the opposition in the state so that the people will not hear what they have to bring onto the table? It brought out a lot of bitterness in people, and we literally had to stop people from going violent on it. Just saying, you know what, let's not fall into that trap that Rivers State is always seen as a violent state. Just let's bear it. God knows we'll get out of this one. Then you bring Executive Order 22, which I'm an architect. For the last, 30, 40 years, there has been no demarcation as to where is residential, where is commercial. In Nigeria, it's a problem. Everywhere has become commercial. Then you now say, you have offices in your own campaign office on the same street that I have my campaign office. And then you get up and say that we cannot have campaign offices in residential areas. It just smacks of wickedness.
What's your personal view of those two orders? Do you believe they're illegal? And if you believe they're illegal, why aren't you guys, the APC that is, challenging it in court?
So and this is where you draw a fine line. A governor has a right to give an executive order, so you can't call it an illegal order,
right?
But it's an unjust order. Okay, so the fact that I have the right to do so, but I'm doing it trampling on the rights of people, it's just the injustice, the insolence, the impunity of it is just, it smacks of wickedness.
Right.
But beyond that, what it told me as a politician going into business was that the opposition was afraid, and I kept asking, what are they afraid of? Why are you afraid? If it's an open contest, come out. You have a candidate, okay, yeah, he's wanted by the EFCC, he's in hiding and all of that, but if he's good enough, then he should come out. Let's stand up and let's just debate. You have an idea, I have an idea. Maybe your idea is better than mine, people will vote for you. If my idea is better than yours, then they will vote for me. If they prefer me to you, then so be it. We shake hands and we move on. 4 years later, you can come back and try. But why must you restrict us, put us in a corner, make sure that we are not seen because your candidate is not seen? Come on now. We don't need that.
If elected governor, Tonye, what policies would you implement for plugging Rivers State into the digital economy in general, and then the Tinubu plan in particular? Okay.
So first and foremost, the digital technology and digital economy is something I believe in. When I was at NIPS, at the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, my individual research project was on digital economy. I looked at that policy. Why? Because I wanted to understand what is the next big thing that can help Nigeria leapfrog into the next generation. And digital economy is where it is. So I'm a firm believer in digital economy, and it's something I believe that Rivers State needs. Why? Because one of the alternatives that we need to bring in Rivers State is an alternative to oil in our thinking. The mindset of every Rivers man is an entitled mindset to oil. And I'm okay with the fact that oil is in our background and it must do much more for us than it has, and all the stories, derivation and all of that. I have no problem with that. But I know that we can be much more. And if there is something that will do that, is digital economy. But what do you need to do that? You need infrastructure. So you need fiber optics, you need 5G technology, you need all of those things. But what does it do when you put it in place? It opens up a large scope of things, opportunities that people can do, young people can do, without having to know the government. They don't ever. And this is my dream, that you do not have to know the direction to your local government chairman's house before you can eat in Rivers State. You don't need to know the governor or your commissioner. For what? Why? Before you can set up your own business and survive. That's where we need to get to. And digital economy will take us there.
Do you think that there's a role for government when it comes to changing that oil obsessed mindset that you talked about? Because I grew up in Rivers State, and I know what it's like in Rivers State, when it comes to the oil.
Yes, there's a big role. Nigerian government, first of all, has seen the devastation today of a Ukrainian war that should have become a boom to Nigeria. But it's not a boom. It's almost a bust for us. Because all the oil that we are struggling to produce, why? Because there are more independent bunkers of Nigerian oil than, it's almost at par. If Nigeria as a state exports 1 million barrels, those who are illegal exporters are doing 1 million barrels. So who really owns the country? So there is a clear need for us as a government to take a focus on how we deal with oil and the story around oil, especially in the Niger Delta. And I don't think it's the Nigerian government that can do it. The Nigerian government is lost when it comes to this. It requires us as Rivers people, as Niger Delta people, as the government in the Niger Delta, and the people to sit down and look at what it's doing. There's an old saying, don't fight a war in your background. We're fighting a war in our background. The war is destroying our ecology. It's destroying everything about us. And this is oil, and it's destroying us. So who benefits in the long run? It's not us. So we need to sit down as a people and decide that oil is in our ground, oil can be exploited, oil can go out. We have no problem with all of those things, but it must not destroy us.
How would you influence that as governor?
Okay, so there are old women that no longer can get Isam. There are old women who cannot go out. When they go out to the creeks, what they used to bring out to feed on before, what they used to bring in one day can take them a week to get it. They are feeling it. There's a feeling. There's something that you can see. If 20 years ago, you had no idea that going to picket or going to bust a pipeline in Jones Creek was going to affect anybody. It was just one little wellhead somewhere, and it wasn't going to make a difference 20 years ago. Today, you can see it everywhere. It's real. People don't understand the emotion of the Niger Delta till you go. Please take a helicopter and just go and take a look. It's real. So we feel it. We know it. So sitting down and having this conversation is not a difficult conversation to have amongst ourselves. If somebody comes from the outside to have that conversation, you are resentful. You feel that they are accusing you.
But it is a conversation that has been had over and over and
over. By who?
By successive I want to say administrations with stakeholders in Rivers State. Are you saying it's never been had by a former governor of Rivers State with the people of Rivers State?
No, because I haven't seen. So let me not say a categorical no, but I think that there are two things that you have to do. The first aspect of it is if you're telling people that this is what we're seeing as a problem, what's the solution? If you don't offer people something, an alternative,
what's your solution?
So that's where I go into digital economy. That's where I go with creating something else that they know their talent can come alive with. If I can sit down, which I know you know very well, if I can sit down in Rivers State and I'm earning foreign exchange, doing work in Korea, Japan, New York, and have not left Sagbama, that's good enough. Then I know I do not have to go into the forest and go and get a pipeline to make 1 naira. If I can do that and you can show me how to do it, and guess what? It's so possible today. It's possible. We look around Lagos. There used to be a time, Ijigbo and all of that, they used to bust pipelines here. There are massive fires in Lagos. Today you hardly see that. You hardly see it. Why? Because people are realizing that they don't need to go into this dangerous thing of scooping petrol for them to survive.
Part of the reason why I left Rivers State was the suit.
Exactly.
And there are lots of people like me who left Rivers State because of the suit. We talk about fire, illegal artisanal refining. We know the impact that it's having. But government seems unable or unwilling to bring an end to it, in part because of all the vested interests and public acceptance of it. what would you do differently about bullfire, for instance?
So again, it comes back to the first aspect of it. There's an education that has to go with bullfire. You know, when you talk of black soot, people don't see the impact. You see it, but you don't see the impact to you in your health till 20 years later, when your children and yourself start having respiratory issues. And it's a slow death. It's just one slow death, which means that we must be able to educate people about this is the problem. The good thing is that we have the history now. You have 20 years, you've seen it, there is data to it, so people can see it. So there's an education that must be done. So the first aspect of it is that we're going to painstakingly educate people as to the dangers of what they're seeing. But you're educating somebody who is hungry. You see, we must understand that there's a poverty issue at stake. There's an unemployment issue at stake. There's an issue where people have been deliberately left out of schools. Deliberately. The education system has been collapsed in certain areas in Rivers State. These are deliberate issues, and we must deal with that aspect of it. So hand in hand, as you're telling somebody that this is going to cause blah, 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 and so on and so forth, the man is looking at you and saying, but this is the only way I eat today. Now, you must be able to substitute that for something. Now, in the first instance, you may substitute it for money. That's what the federal government tried to do with amnesty. But it's a short-term thing. If you start giving people money, they sit at home, they're folding their hands, and they're just expecting money. They must be able to work. We must be able to make sure that that substitution is in something that brings labor to them, for them to be able to feed and live off. It's a long-term work, but it's a work that is necessary. We cannot, Sandra, we cannot close our eyes to this.